Hello everyone, Mulk here. In this video I will show you how to easily pack and unpack assets for DUNGEONDRAFT with GoPackager from Ryex. Don't forget to turn on YouTube's caption for a better understanding of my poor French accent. This video is the full version of the tutorial. You can find on my channel a shorter version of it to get your hands on the basics. The link of the video is in the description. Several years ago, I made a short video about packing assets with 8-bit tool. It is now a bit old and the new tool from Ryex is more powerful and easier to use. I will try to cover all that I didn't talk about in the first video, like preparing and packing the various types of assets for the different tools, so it will be a bit longer, but also more complete. Feel free to ask your questions here or on the official Megasploit Discord if you need more info, and make sure to check the timestamps to get only what you need from this video. First, we'll need to download the tool by following the link in the video description. Download the version corresponding to your operating system, as it works on Windows, Mac and Linux. With this software, you'll be able to either pack or unpack your asset files. Once it's downloaded, simply extract it on your computer. No install is required. Let's have a look at how to unpack any DUNGEONDRAFT pack first, as it is very quick. Open the tool, drag and drop the DUNGEONDRAFT pack from your Explorer into the main area, click on Yes, choose an output location, and then click on Extract. Simple as that. Now you can find the unpacked files in your Explorer. Okay, so now let's have a look at how to pack your own assets. If you want the program to pack your files successfully, they will need to follow several rules. The folder structure is very important, but the files themselves are important too. The image files need to be in PNG or in WebP. You can also use JPEG, but be aware that you won't have transparency with that format. It's also better to have 256 ppi files to align with DUNGEONDRAFT's grid. Make sure you only name your files and folders with regular English characters, as DUNGEONDRAFT can't read accents, Cyrillic, Greek letters, or any other special character. For the assets to be displayed at maximum size in the tool's preview, make sure to crop all the invisible pixels they might have on their sides. Now let's have a look at the folder structure. I won't go into the super niche details of some of the subtools, as you probably won't need them right away. You need to start with a folder that will have the name of your pack. Let's say My Pack. From here, it is very important you name your folders the exact same way as I do, capital letters included. In the folder, you will need a textures folder without capital T and with a S at the end. Then, in that folder, you will put a subfolder for each tool you want to include in your pack. The most common one is the objects, so we will start by that. But you can also have a variety of other tools like path, patterns, terrain, lights, and so on. We'll get to that later. Inside the textures folder, create an objects folder, no capital O and with a S at the end. In that folder, you can put all the files you want to use in the objects tool, which are usually mostly decor and clutter stuff. For this pack, I will be using assets from WhiteFoxWorks that you might have seen in a previous video of mine. If you want the assets to be sorted a bit better, you can add subfolders with the names of your choice, which will act as tags in DUNGEONDRAFT and will make the search tool more efficient. You can nest as many subfolders as you want, so each one will be a new subtag. You can also add a folder named Colorable with a capital C and put your colorable assets in there if you have some. To turn an asset colorable, you'll need a program like Photoshop, Clip Studio Paint, GIMP or Photopea. The colorable area needs to follow strict rules. There's a bunch of ways to do it, but basically you need the colorable part to be made of pure red tones, and not too dark nor too light. This might be a bit tricky to get working, and you'll probably need a few tries. It's okay. Keep in mind that if you have some other reddish tones in your assets, they might be considered as colorable too by DUNGEONDRAFT, so be careful. Also, please note that colorable assets need to be in PNG or in lossless WebP. If you compress these files, the red areas won't work correctly. I will now show you how I do it with Photoshop. First, copy your base layer. On the new layer, select the area you want to turn colorable. Create a layer mask from the selection. Then, create a hue saturation adjustment layer and turn the saturation to 0. Make it a clipping mask by holding Alt and clicking between the two layers. Create a levels adjustment layer and make it a clipping mask too. Then, create a clipping mask of pure red and set it to Overlay. Now go back to the Levels mask, set the output level to 240 and play with the input level sliders to get the brightest red you can get. You can have lighter and darker tones, but the most saturated area will be the closest from the color you pick in DUNGEONDRAFT. Now export the file in PNG or in lossless WebP and place it into the Colorable folder. Congratulations! You've just made your first colorable asset. Keep in mind that you need to generate the tags with the packing tool for the colorable asset to work. Now it's basically all you need for the objects. Let's have a look at the other subtools. We'll start with the most common one, the patterns. Patterns need to be seamless. It is recommended to have them in 1280 by 1280 pixels or at a higher resolution, with no repeats in them. That means there will be at least 5 by 5 grid squares. If you have textures that have repeats, for example artificial ones with lines in them, try to make them align with the 256 pixel grid. To learn how to make seamless images, please have a look at the dedicated timestamp. First, in the texture folder, create a patterns folder, no capital P and with a S at the end. Inside, create a normal folder with no capital N. There, you will put all your patterns. Be aware that because of what seems to be a bug, patterns that have the word colorable in their names will be considered as colorable if they have red areas, as for objects, but as a side effect, it will disable any transparency and create artifacts instead. Tilesets are a type of patterns that will be used by the building tool. Because the building tool randomizes each tile, the texture needs to be seamless on a 256 by 256 pixel basis. The file itself can be the size you want, as long as it respects that rule. Because of that, it does not play well with natural textures like grass, dirt or water, so it's advised to keep only artificial textures in there. In the Textures folder, create a Tilesets folder, no capital T with the S at the end. Then inside it, create a simple folder, no capital S, and place your tileset texture files here. I will not cover the two other types of folders you can make here, Smart and Smart Double. For more info, head on to the official Discord. Terrain files are basically the same as patterns, but they can be improved to make them blend better between them. In the Textures folder, create a Terrain folder, no capital T and no S at the end. Then, inside it, copy all your non-transparent pattern files that you can need as a floor. Then, if you want to improve the way they will blend together in the Terrain tool, open them in an image editor. Here's my process in Photoshop. Select all with Ctrl+A, copy the selection, create a layer mask, open that layer mask by clicking on it while pressing Alt, then paste your selection. With Ctrl+L, adjust the levels, especially the output levels, so there's a good contrast but no fully black pixels. This will make your terrain half transparent, and the darker parts will be more transparent than the lighter parts. The Terrain tool in DUNGEONDRAFT will understand the darker parts as deeper and will fill them first. Save your file in PNG or in WebP. Please note that textures that use transparency in them by default, like gaps or holes, won't work correctly in the Terrain tool. Paths are horizontally seamless assets. To learn how to make seamless assets, please go to the dedicated timestamp. Paths can be any length you want, but it's better if they are a multiple of 256 pixels. It is recommended to have at least 1 or 2 invisible pixels on top and at the bottom to avoid artifacts when bending the path. In the Textures folder, create a Path folder, no capital P and with a S at the end. Then inside it, place all your path files. Even though there's a specific tool for the walls, I would advise to copy your walls here too, as they are compatible with the Path tool. Walls are basically the same as path, but with a few subtleties. In the Textures folder, create a Walls folder, no capital W, with a S at the end. Then inside it, place all your wall files. If your wall has an indoor and an outdoor side, you need to make the outdoor side at the bottom of the image, as it will be the correct way for the building tool. You can also add a cap to the wall. It will serve as an end to the file. It can be a simple black bar of the same height as your wall, or a more complex image, like a pillar. The middle of the cap will be placed onto the endpoint of the wall. The cap file is not mandatory, but if you want to make some for your walls, you'll need one file for each wall, and then name that file the same as your wall, followed by _end. For example, here my wall is called wall_1.png, so the cap will be named wall_1_end.png. As said in the Path tool part, I would advise to copy your wall files into the Path tool too. Keep the caps for the wall tool only. Materials are the same as patterns, but will need a border path file to go around them. In the Textures folder, create a Materials folder, no capital M with an S at the end, and then inside it, place all your material textures and borders. The name of each texture file will need to end with _tile, and each border path file will need to end with _border. So here, for example, my files are named fur_white_tile.png and fur_white_border.png. The border file will need to be facing up, with the actual border on top and the fading part at the bottom. Caves are the same as materials, but each one of them will need to be in their specific folder. In the Textures folder, create a Caves folder, no capital C and with the S at the end, and then inside it, create a folder for each cave you have and place your texture and border files in these folders. You can name these folders the way you want, just make sure to use underscores instead of spaces. Each texture file will need to be called floor, and each border path file will need to be named wall. If your cave wall has a faded edge, it must be at the top of the image. Roofs are made of a pattern and of several paths. As for caves, each roof needs to be in a separate folder. In the Textures folder, create a Roofs folder, no capital R, with an S at the end. Then inside it, create a folder for each roof you have. As for the caves, you can name these folders the way you want, just make sure to use underscores instead of spaces. Inside these folders, the files will always be named the same. The texture will be named Tiles, then we will have 3 paths named Edge, Hip and Ridge. The edge will be the roof border, the hip will be joining 2 sides, and the ridge will be at the very top, in the middle of the roof. You might need to experiment a bit with the path to get them look right. Portals are working only with the wall tool and can be windows or doors. They can be the size you want, but it is recommended to make them a multiple of 256 pixels to snap to the grid. It is important there's no invisible pixels on the sides, otherwise that will make a gap between your wall and your portal. In the Textures folder, create a Portals folder, no capital P and with the S at the end. Then inside it, place all your portals. I'd advise to copy all your portals in the objects too, for more control if needed. Lights are the last tool we will cover here and are simple black and white files. They can also be white with a transparent background. The white part will be what's used in the light tool. In the Textures folder, create a Lights folder, no capital L with a S at the end. Then inside it, place all your light files. Here's how to turn a texture into a fully seamless image in Photoshop, if that wasn't the case by default. Please understand that some texture might take more work than others depending on their look. In the View menu, go into Pattern Preview. If you don't see that, you can alternatively use the Offset option. Press Ctrl F, then search for Offset. It's just a bit more tedious. Then you'll need to fix the edges with the various tools at your disposal. I like to use a mix of the clone stamp and the patch tool. For horizontally seamless images, like paths and walls, you can apply the same workflow, but instead of having the 4 edges to fix, you only need to fix the left and the right side. It can be a little harder if the image is not flat, like here, but in the end, you usually can make it work by copying and pasting parts of the file, then removing some parts with a soft brush. I would advise to use a layer mask for that, so it's non-destructive. And with that, we've covered all your needs for the preparation part. But if you want, you can also add a preview image that will be displayed in DUNGEONDRAFT's Asset Pack Selector when you click on your pack. It's not mandatory, but if you want to have one, just create a PNG image and call it preview.png. Then place it next to the texture folder. And then we are done with the pre-packing part. We can actually start the packing. Open the GoPackager tool, Then select your pack folder in your Explorer and simply drag and drop it onto the main area of the tool and click on Yes. If your pack is totally new, it will miss a file called Pack.json, which contains some info that DungeonDraft will use to recognize the pack. The tool offers you to create that file as soon as you drop your folder in. Click on the button called Create a Pack.json. A new window will pop up. At the top, there's the pack ID, which differentiates two packs. I'd recommend to leave it as it is, unless you know what you're doing. Under that, there's the pack name, based on the folder's name you just dropped in. You can change it if you want. Under that, there's the author of the pack, which you can leave blank or add your name if you want. Then there's the version of the pack. It's useful if you update your pack in the future. To change the version, just click on the arrows. Then there's the keywords box, which is only useful in DungeonDraft's asset pack selection window if you have a lot of different asset packs in there. I usually leave it blank. If you check this box, that means other softwares or apps like Arkenforge or MapMe will be able to read your pack. This is a bit tricky to explain, but I will try to be as clear as possible. By ticking this box off, you will add the following line to your pack.json file. Allow third-party mapping software to read true. Be aware that the line will appear only if the box is ticked off. This has two consequences. If that line appears, versions of DungeonDraft that are older than 1.0.4.2 won't be able to read the pack, as this option wasn't there at the time. So if you want your pack to be compatible with older versions, don't tick that box off. But without the line, users of the MapMe app on iPad will be able to read the packs. So if you want to make your packs unavailable for MapMe users, you need to manually change the line from true to false and untick the box. This line will stay in the JSON file until you tick the box again and save. On the other hand, Arkenforge can't read the packs if the line isn't there or if the line is set to false. At the moment, MapMe and Arkenforge are the only two third-party softwares that I know of which can read DungeonDraft packs, but it might change in the future. Finally, this box will allow you to change the parameters for the colorable objects, which I would advise to leave unchecked unless you really know what you're doing. Once everything seems good, you can hit Save. The JSON file containing the basic info of your pack has been created. If you want to edit what you've just done, you can click on the Edit Settings button, which will get you back to that window. Now you can click on the Generate Thumbnails button, so DungeonDraft won't have to do it itself. I highly recommend it, especially if your pack contains a lot of assets. Be aware that if you have some WebP files containing transparency, like glass for example, you might see some minor artifacts on the previews, which won't be there if these assets are in PNG. Once it's done, you can also click on the Generate Tags button. Be aware that DungeonDraft uses tags only for objects, not for the other tools. As explained earlier, the tags are based off the names of your folder. In this window, you have various settings. By default, just click Generate at the bottom and it will work. If you want to go more in-depth with the tags, here you have a global tag set box. It will group your tags for this pack under the same set, so if you have several packs, you can find their respective tags more easily in DungeonDraft by selecting their own set. Under that, you can use custom sets for your tags if you want. Tag sets act like super tags to enable groups of tags all at the same time. If you're interested in this, you'll need to go back to your folder structure and add the set names between the delimiters you've chosen in the tool. If you choose that option, it is advised to keep the strip tag option active. Otherwise, your tags will look messy. You can also use a separator instead of a prefix. Here at the top, you can see how your folder structure should look like, so make sure to follow that if you're creating sets. In this box, you can choose any other prefix you want to remove from your tags if your folder's names contain some unwanted stuff. Once everything seems good to you, you can click on Generate. The tags are now displayed in the main window, showing you what's in them. If you want, you can remove some of them right here. You can also add and remove tag and tag sets by clicking on the Edit Tag Sets button. Back in the main area, you can navigate through your pack, and on the right part, you see a preview of the assets. If you click here, you can also see which tags they are in, and add or remove tags for a specific asset. If you have some walls in your pack, you can also set a default color for them if you want. Then your pack is ready to be packed. Choose a destination folder where it will be generated. Usually, it's better to choose the folder that contains your other asset packs if you have one. If you need to update a pack, you can check this little box here to overwrite the first file. Now hit Package. Your pack is now ready. To find it in DUNGEONDRAFT, open the software and click on the Assets button at the top. If you didn't already choose an asset folder in DUNGEONDRAFT, select the one you've used to generate the pack. At this step, DUNGEONDRAFT is only looking for folders and not for packs, so the file itself won't appear here, and that's totally normal. Select your folder, and then your pack should appear in the list. Select it and hit Accept. You can now start a new map and the assets will be there. If you want to add the new pack to an old map, open the map, go into the Assets window at the top, select the pack in the list and hit Accept. DUNGEONDRAFT will need you to save and reload the map for the changes to be effective. Here's your pack. If you want to update the pack, simply change the files in your folders and repeat the previous packing steps. Don't forget you can change the version number to keep track of your changes. This is the end of this tutorial. I hope you found it useful. Feel free to ask me anything here or on Discord. Happy map making and see you soon!